Since the coronavirus epidemic started in 2019, people who are of Chinese descent and those who look like they might be of Chinese descent have endured a huge increase in racism from people all over the United States and in other nations around the world. Scores of people get triggered to physical violence and verbal assault at the mere sight of seeing someone who looks like they could be Asian. But here's the thing. There's 48 countries in Asia, one of which is China. Okay, and there are also 17.3 million Asian Americans who are citizens in our country. But this doesn't seem to disturb people who now deem anyone who looks Asian to be from China.
Everyone knows Chinese people are disgusting. They'll eat any type of animal. They're dirty. That's what my classmate said just days after the coronavirus outbreak started in the United States.
One man at a Super 8 hotel in Plymouth, Indiana, decided to deny two men a room.
If you're from China, I need to know, because there's a coronavirus going around, and anyone from China, I am told, has to be picked up and quarantined for 2 weeks.
Is there a policy? Can I see that?
A woman who's Asian says she was punched by another woman in Midtown Manhattan, and she accused her of having the COVID-19 virus.
Class basically just started, and one of the girls said all Chinese people were disgusting. And so I literally raised my hand up, like, I am Chinese.
There's another virus spreading that we need to be talking about.
I hate Asians.
Flyer was circulated around Carson, California, in the Los Angeles area, told people to avoid Asian American run businesses due to the coronavirus concerns.
Chinese restaurant was texting their customers saying, none of our staff have been to China. We have no contact with the coronavirus. Please come back to us. And people were making fun of it.
There are thousands and thousands of cases in Italy, but no one's boycotting Olive Garden.
Yeah.
No, seriously, no one's boycotting a mom and pop's pizza place. It's the same thing.
Assaults took place a couple weeks back at a high school in San Fernando Valley. The victim was sent to the hospital with a concussion.
As Asian Americans continue to share stories of violence and discrimination, messaging from some of our politicians not making it any easier. From the Secretary of State.
Before I address the efforts that we've been engaged in to push back against the Chinese virus.
Trump's comments, what it does is distance Asians from the rest of America and the rest of the world by targeting Asians and putting a face, a culture as someone or something to blame for this virus.
Why do you keep calling this the Chinese virus? There are reports of dozens of incidents of bias against Chinese Americans in this country. Your own aide, Secretary Azar, says he does not use this term. He says ethnicity does not cause the virus. Why do you keep using this? A lot of people say it's racist.
It's not racist at all, no, not at all.
Coronavirus did stem from China. However, CDC director and member of the president's virus task force, Robert Redfield, broke with those GOP lawmakers during a congressional hearing, saying it was wrong to refer to COVID-19 as a Chinese coronavirus.
It is absolutely wrong and inappropriate to call this the Chinese coronavirus. I assume you would agree with that.
Yes.
Why did they do that to this car? My heart just sunk.
This car vandalized in California. The language too disturbing to show you.
Even more troubling, we are seeing a disturbing rise in hate-filled attacks. This has now led some to worry about how to defend themselves, and gun sales are actually up in certain neighborhoods.
Dylan Mariano's family says their son was discriminated against by a teacher who claims he mistook coughing as a sign that the 13-year-old had COVID-19. Dylan says he was coughing because he was choking on water.
This was the first time that I've ever felt I was being treated differently for being Asian.
I'm very proud to be a Bay Area kid, born and raised. But one of the things that doesn't make me proud is part of our past. I come from a community that initiated the Chinese Exclusion Act. I remember a guy by the name of Dennis in the time, and he began and ended every speech by saying, whatever else we do, the Chinese must go. One thing I also want to express is deep, deep recognition of the xenophobia, the racism, that is being perpetuated against Asians in our state. We have seen a huge increase in people that are assaulting people on the basis of how they were born, the way they look.
The FBI have been brought in to investigate the stabbing spree at Sam's Club in Midland over the weekend. And as the senseless act of violence unfolded, 2 men stepped up to save a family and stop the attacker. Today, our team helped bring those 2 men together for the first time since that dangerous incident. I love this. 29-year-old Zach Owen and Border Patrol agent Bernie Ramirez met in the parking lot of Sam's Club, sharing a moment of reflection and, of course, a selfie. Dana Morris was there to capture all of it. He joins us now live.
Yeah, Tatum, during this special meeting, each one of those men commended each other on stepping up in the face of danger. And as for the family that was victimized, I spoke with them as well, and I'm happy to report they are recovering despite that painful incident. Take a look.
Bowie Kung and his family are trying to get back to normal. This after Bowie was targeted in an attack at the Sam's Club in Midland on Saturday night. The first strike, a punch to the back of his head.
At first I was thinking like one of my friends just kidding me. When I turned around, he just how to say, stuck my face with a knife.
After the slash, the father of 3 says the attacker ran off. But as Bowie went for help, the 19-year-old suspect came back.
He just focused to my son that just stuck. He said, but I'm trying to save them, and I suddenly I ran to them and pulled the car, but I cannot. It's a little bit late.
Meanwhile, an off-duty Customs Border Protection agent was rushing over.
I, heard the commotion. I knew something was wrong, but it's once I heard the woman screaming and a baby crying, that's when it elevated the level.
Agent Ramirez just happened to be in Midland that night to visit family. But when he walked up to the violence, his law enforcement nature kicked in.
So now I saw two men. They were on the ground, and one man had the other individual in a chokehold.
Applying that choke was Zach Owen.
I was off duty, but I did have my weapon on me and my badge and credentials, and I identified myself, told him who I was, and I was telling him to break it up. And then that's why when I noticed one of the individuals was a Sam's employee, and he looked at me, he told me, he goes, this guy just stabbed somebody, he's got a knife.
Despite deep cuts to his leg and his hand, Zach stopped the threat.
I told the Sam's employee, I go, just let him go. And I took control of the individual, rolled him over, searched him, and just basically I detained him.
Police arrived shortly after and arrested the suspect. Zach was taken to the hospital, and it wasn't until today that Agent Ramirez and Zach were able to officially meet each other.
In my book, Zach's the real hero. He stepped in with his bare hands, and he went in there, joined in on the fight against an individual who had a knife.
Today, Bowie told me that Zach got there just in time, because while him and his son were injured, they can recover.
I was very thankful to him and that he saved our lives and my family. I really appreciate him.
A message he expressed to Zach at the hospital, but will likely repeat for the rest of his life.
Now, Bowie's injuries there will require 8 stitches, and I want to make this clear. Bowie also took time to thank the Midland Police Department, Agent Ramirez, and all the doctors who were there to help him and his son recover.
Well, the community feels like, they're fighting 2 diseases here. Exactly. The disease of corona, but also bigotry. Yes. And I really feel for those young kids, especially who are Americans that are being made to feel like the other.
This virus is simply another excuse to be racist and cruel to our own fellow humans. And I can't help but thinking, when I was doing the research for this, it's like, I couldn't believe it. There are articles all over the place about this kind of stuff happening. But when I think about it, my Black and African American friends, they're in fear of this every single day of their life. Coronavirus or no coronavirus. I'm not comparing one to the other, but there's never an excuse for racism.